whitewater. It's unleashed a wild dream in an unlikely place through downtown Columbus, Georgia.
They were looking at this setting and said the Olympics should have been here.
The Chattahoochee is a very large river, even under the low flow condition.
This one's a little violent there.
But first, they'll have to build a 3D model of the river.
So that wave right there is just about perfect.
3, 2, 1.
And blow up 2 dams.
Is it worth it? Oh yeah, it's going to be some of the best urban, if not the best, urban whitewater in America.
These are troubled waters. For decades, Georgia, Alabama, and Florida have struggled over how to share them.
The Chattahoochee is a river, like so many rivers in our country, where the demands on it exceed the supply. But the bottom line is you've got to keep enough water in the river so that it functions like a river, and it needs to flow like a river as well.
Born in the North Georgia mountains, the Chattahoochee flows south for over 500 miles to the Gulf of Mexico. Halfway through that journey, in Columbus, it finds its way barred by 2 rock and masonry dams. City Mills Dam, and 2 miles below it, Eagle and Phoenix. Each of these dams is more than 100 years old, and neither serves any useful purpose anymore.
I guess this crazy idea was floated, no pun intended, roughly 20 years ago by a guy named Neil Wickham.
In 1975, Neil Wickham opened Columbus's first outdoor store, predecessor to the one downtown today.
Yes, sir.
One day, this avid canoeist had a dream.
We would go up on the Nantahala and come home and talk about the river here and say, gosh, it sure would be nice, you know, if they take out the dams.
Then he could paddle whitewater in his own backyard. To sell the idea, he went to a friend, Bill Turner, chairman of the W.C. Bradley Company that owned much of the land along the river.
I talked to him about having a whitewater run, and his sons were at the age they picked up the ball and ran with it.
One of them was John Turner.
I thought that that was just an awesome idea. I mean, the notion that behind these dams there was lurking this whitewater experience.
Little did John Turner know what he was getting himself into. The asking price for one dam alone with Powerhouse was $4.5 million.
I guess you could say that we were able to acquire the first dam because of an act of God. The price tag was very high until lightning struck the upper powerhouse and burned everything. And as a result of that, we were able to purchase the Eagle and Phoenix Dam for about 25 cents on the dollar.
But still, the main challenge was finding an engineer who could make Columbus's whitewater dream a reality. In 1996, the Olympic Games came to Atlanta. The whitewater competition events were held on a newly constructed course on the Ocoee River in Tennessee.
We knew about Rick McLaughlin as a result of Rick's group working on the Ocoee River Olympic venue.
You may have to take out that pipe and the debris.
After we designed the Olympic course on that Ocoee, whitewater started to take off. And in the last 15 years of my career, it's been the majority of the work that I've done.
The main goal, again, of this whole Alabama side is just to make a smoother ride.
Rick and John Anderson, who works with him, their first visit to Columbus, they were looking at this setting that you see here, and they turned to each other, and this was in 1998, and said the Olympics should have been here.
What Rick McLaughlin could see that first day in Columbus was the same thing he'd helped develop in Denver.
One of my mentors happened to design the original Confluence Park. It was first built in the mid-'70s. I was a kayaker, and so I saw that he was doing that kind of work, and I thought, wow, that looks pretty interesting.
Confluence Park is on the edge of downtown Denver, the place where Cherry Creek joins the South Platte River. In the 1970s, it ran through an abandoned industrial area.
To our knowledge, this is the first urban whitewater boat shoot in the United States of America. It's really taken a blighted and ignored, rejected area of Denver and made it one of the hottest, most vibrant areas of our community.
Well, today's a great example of what this park is about. There's a few kayakers out here and the kayakers are enjoying it, but it's a great resource for the city of Denver.
Rick McLaughlin redesigned the whitewater run in the early 1990s, specifically to make it more attractive to kayakers.
So what we have right here is a sill. You see the little bit of kind of a concrete sticking out there. That's a sill, and this same type of construction we're planning for the Chattahoochee.
But compared to what Rick is facing in Columbus, Confluence Park is tiny.
This venue is only about 300 feet long, whereas the Chattahoochee is 2.1 miles long. This venue only has about 6 foot of drop. The Chattahoochee has about 30 feet of drop.
And at high flows, the Chattahoochee turns into a raging monster. The challenge is how to tame it. In the early 19th century, a little-known French artist painted this view of the Chattahoochee River. It shows a series of rapids known as Coweta Falls, future site of the city of Columbus.
Columbus is here for a reason, and that is that this is the precise place where the fall line and the coastal plain meet.
Across the southeastern United States, rivers tumble out of the rolling hills of the Piedmont onto the coastal plain, creating what's called the fall line.
You could get steamboats or other type of crafts up to the falls, and you then loaded cotton and you took it downstream. But the other thing, of course, is the falls generate tremendous water power.
The first dam to be built is the predecessor of today's City Mills Dam. Within a year of Columbus's founding in 1828, it's already operating.
City Mills was a grist mill just on the northern border of the city. It was grinding corn, wheat, later on feed, and it was a very simple dam.
Others soon realize that the water power can be put to a much more lucrative use. One of them is William H. Young.
He had made a fortune as a merchant, and he understood the power of the Chattahoochee. What they were doing here is they were turning falling water into money.
In 1850, Young builds the Eagle Mill. But at the end of the Civil War, Union forces leave his textile business in ruins.
They burned all the cotton warehouse, and they burned all the industry. And so you think it's going to languish forever. It doesn't. The only thing he's lost is a building and some equipment. So what's going to happen is he's going to expand very rapidly.
To celebrate its rapid rebirth from the ashes of the Civil War, William Young adds a mythical bird to the name of his mill, calling it the Eagle and Phoenix. By the 1880s, Columbus is vying with northern textile manufacturing centers, proclaiming itself the Lowell of the South.
By the time William Young got where he wanted it with 3 mills, he produced something like 144 different products, particularly at that point in the 80s when they are really the largest operation in the South.
Others, too, are eager to cash in on Columbus's textile boom. Among them, a young cotton buyer named W.C. Bradley.
The W.C. Bradley Company owned a riverboat line. He had cotton plantations south of town that were on the river, and that cotton would come up here.
And my daddy, he was a riverboat captain here. He was on the river for 10 years, and they would run from here to Apalachicola and back and haul an awful lot of cotton.
The bulk of the cotton leaving here is going to England. It's going to Liverpool, and then it's going to New England. So these planters here, whether they realize it or not, were very much part of a world market.
To keep up with demand, the dams are modernized. In the early 20th century, powerhouses begin generating electricity to drive the mills and the city.
That hum, that vibration of the textile mills was very much part of the life of Columbus.
But as the 20th century wears on, the textile industry in Columbus and across the southern United States is dying. In 1995, the giant Eagle and Phoenix Mill complex at last falls silent. The dams are also rendered obsolete, superseded by a series of more modern hydropower dams further upstream on the Chattahoochee. Families gather in the summer sun to celebrate the nation's Independence Day. A river walk completed by Columbus Waterworks has reclaimed the riverfront. Gleaming company headquarters stand on land once occupied by textile mills. Symbols of Columbus's new economy based on insurance, banking, and financial services. Now, the aging dams themselves must go.
We really don't have a choice. If the water wasn't flowing over the top of the dam, you'd see 1,000 jets of water coming through the dam, and that indicates that it's really not in great condition. And the same applies to the city mills dams. We're really only left with the alternative of fixing the natural river, and that's the choice that we're making.
But restoring the river to its natural state and creating a whitewater course through downtown Columbus is a complicated task. Several important structures must be built before the dams are removed.
Does the boat have GPS that will report the bottom automatically, or?
Whitewater designer Rick McLaughlin joins retired MIT engineer Ed Kinner and the local dive team. They're about to conduct an underwater survey of the riverbed to see if his preliminary designs will work.
Just kind of swim down through here just to see what we've got.
Diver Josh Blair will survey the river bottom for Rick McLaughlin.
The Chattahoochee is a very large river, and even under the low flow condition, we really can't see what's underneath the water surface.
Out on the river, below Eagle and Phoenix Dam, the dive team goes to work.
They can tell how deep something is, but they can't tell what the actual bottom composition is. That's what I do, is I go down and actually put eyes on the areas that they have an interest in.
We just want to go like straight down about 100 feet, just to get a sense of what we got here.
It's actually a pretty neat river. There's a lot of pretty awesome features in the river, which is why they want to turn it into a whitewater rapid site.
24.3.
Above, the team gathers depth information.
59.884.
This agrees very closely with what is on my plan.
Back on the surface, Josh Blair gives his first report.
There is a section of small boulders, all 1 to 3 feet. And then we came up to some bigger boulders, 2 or 3 of them that were greater than 3 feet. And then we went back into the bedrock.
The team is encouraged by the survey results, but also sobered by the challenge of working in a rocky, highly irregular riverbed.
It could push us one way or the other concerning the overall construction process, whether we can have divers build something or whether we have to basically put a wall in the water and pump out one side of the wall such that we have a dry riverbed that we can construct on.
Fortunately, they found a way to divert the river at low flows through the old powerhouse, which means for much of the day, the dam itself will keep the riverbed below it almost dry.
During the construction process, this dam that you see will serve as a cofferdam.
In fact, without the dam, the task would be virtually impossible. Once, sometimes twice a day, the river increases to more than 10 times the normal flow as the turbines at Georgia Power's North Highlands Dam above the city spin up to generate electricity.
It'd be as if we're trying to remove all this rubble with 100 fire hoses trained on the construction site.
The sheer scale of what they're undertaking is beginning to hit home.
You could probably take most of all the other courses in the country and fit them into Columbus. It's that big. It's a very large whitewater project, perhaps one of the largest in the country, if not the world.
And size threatens to drive up costs.
Bring you up to date on where we are on costing. The budget of May 1st was based on detailed plans below even things.
At Uptown Columbus, the private organization that's bankrolling the massive whitewater project, those in charge are beginning to get nervous. Their job is to ensure Rick McLaughlin's rapidly evolving design doesn't break the budget.
We need him to give us, say, this is what we want to build. We need details.
Around every corner there's a surprise. Sometimes it's regulatory, sometimes it's a design challenge, sometimes it's a financial challenge. I think it's probably a good thing that the group working on this didn't really fully understand what we were getting into.
Fortunately, Uptown Columbus has found a partner to shoulder some of the $25 million the project will cost. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers is generally in the business of building dams, not demolishing them. They operate a series of federal reservoirs up and down the Chattahoochee River, but their authority goes beyond water control.
In this particular authority that we're utilizing, it's called aquatic ecosystem restoration, and the intent is to return the aquatic environment back to as close as its original state as it were.
Much of that habitat that used to exist is gone because these big fall line rivers have been impounded from Virginia to Mississippi. So they recognized that this was one of only a few opportunities to remove a dam on a big fall line river.
The company the Corps of Engineers has selected to begin the task is CH2M Hill. On the 16th floor of this Atlanta office tower, a team headed up by environmental scientist Doug Boffman is developing the plan to remove the dam.
So with the dam taken out, this is what it would look like. And then the green illustrates where the structures would be built. Well, everybody thinks you should just blow it up, set the charges and let it go and it'll all be fine. It's really not that simple.
These 3D models have been assembled from extensive survey data. Not only do they show the topography of the riverbed, they can also simulate the effects of different flow rates, vital both for whitewater design and predicting effects on fish and other aquatic life. One native fish species experts hope will thrive once the river is restored in Columbus is a favorite with anglers here.
Oh yeah, that's more like it. Shoal bass. Scientific name is Microcopterus cattarae, which is waterfall bass, literally. And that's pretty much it. They like whitewater, what you would think of as probably kayak water or canoeing water.
And shoal bass find it on the Flint River, the Chattahoochee's largest tributary. Undammed for almost 200 miles, the fish can travel unimpeded over its fall line rapids.
On the Flint, it's well documented recently that they're moving from 40 to 100 miles during the course of a year.
The success of the shoal bass on the Flint gives anglers and conservationists hope for a comeback on the Chattahoochee.
There's a remnant population there in downtown Columbus, and the thought is that once those dams come out, it's going to open up a much longer area for movement, and we'll get a better shoal bass fishery.
What we find over and over is that the building blocks for a river are always there. And when you take out a dam and you allow a river to flow freely again, you'll see the river come back to life.
Still further east, a tributary to the Savannah River is also home to a unique fall line species.
This is the Shoals spider lily, and its technical name is Hymenocallis coronaria. To look around here, you wouldn't think of it as being an endangered or protected species, but actually it is.
Like the shoal bass, this flowering plant depends on swift-flowing water. Too little, and they die. Too much, and their reproduction is threatened. A restored river in Columbus could provide a new and much-needed habitat for this spectacular plant. Something Doug Boffman is working on.
One of the things that we'll be doing as part of the ecosystem restoration aspect of the design is to do some bank stabilization and replanting of native vegetation to improve habitat along the river. Okay.
But as he refines his plan, Boffman believes it's the combination of restoration and recreation that is the key.
We're seeing lots of parts of the country where there are old dams that they'd like to take out, but it's a very expensive process. So in this particular case, getting some federal money to help take the dams out, at the same time doing the whitewater with support from the locals has really been the mechanism that's allowed this project to go forward.
The work now shifts to Denver. With the help of the 3D models created by CH2M Hill, the McLaughlin Whitewater design team are refining their plans for the first of two features to be built below the Eagle and Phoenix Dam.
So we've got, what, a 5-foot wave there?
A little over, yep.
Somewhere around the dam, the main channel of the Chattahoochee splits in two, one running down the Alabama side, the other close to the Georgia bank.
A culmination of your whitewater experience down this river will occur just adjacent to the powerhouse on the Georgia side of the river.
It'll be produced by a wave shaper, a 60-foot wide structure with movable vanes shaped something like airplane wings. These vanes will allow the wave shaper to produce the perfect wave, even when flow rates fluctuate.
Kayakers want a really good hydraulic feature. It can be in the form of a wave or a hole or a breaking wave, something that they can get in and do all sorts of tricks and stunts and really test their abilities. At the same time, though, we have to build those features so that rafters can go through it without intimidation.
Intimidation is exactly what kayakers currently face on the Alabama side of the river.
The big Class 5 hole, cut bait rapid now is what they call it. That's a pretty violent hole. We don't really play in it. Matter of fact, we told a lot of people if they got into it twice in a kayak, then we'd name it after them, but they had to get into it twice.
So far, no one has managed it. In this cavernous building, Rick McLaughlin has been working hard to find a solution.
What did it do?
It totally calms this all down right in here.
At Alden Research Labs in Worcester, Massachusetts, a miniature replica of the Chattahoochee River is reaching full spate.
Right now what we're running is the maximum flow that the river will most likely ever see. What you see here in the model is an actual representation of the river with the whitewater course installed and the dam removed.
Every man-made structure, every rocky outcrop in the stretch through Columbus has been painstakingly recreated. It's a $300,000 investment to predict just how the Columbus whitewater course will perform.
Even with the fancy computer models that we have nowadays, a physical model is still the best tool that we have for predicting how water is going to flow.
Rick first focuses on the dangerous Alabama Channel.
So we had this narrow, very high velocity ditch that ended up in a big, nasty hydraulic at the bottom.
In the model, Rick has built several structures in the channel.
Most upstream area is this structure here, which we call the entrance sill, and helps divide the flow, kind of spread it out.
The entrance sill will be about 30 feet wide and 15 feet deep. It will slow the flow and divert some of it towards the Georgia side. Below the entrance sill will be two smaller concrete sills designed to slow the water further.
At low flow, they try to make the flow a little bit deeper, so when you go through it, that you don't scrape your bottom on the rock all the way down. As we move down, this is what we call the exit sill. It's a stepped structure. Actually, it's built out of grout bags in the real world.
In the real world, it's also where the deadly hole lies that kayakers fear most. Rick plans to reduce the danger by building a series of descending steps.
So our primary goal was to mellow it out and make that something that a raft could go through easily.
Back in Columbus, a crowd gathers above the river. They've come to witness a milestone event, groundbreaking, on a project that will unite two cities and two states.
What we do here today is as critical to the history of Columbus, Georgia, as when the first stone was laid on the first mill of these shores.
Today is the culmination of a lot of hard work, great dreams to bring whitewater rafting to our community.
This is a team sport, and I am so proud to represent the Corps of Engineers with this great partnership here.
It's our river, and for the last 13 plus years, we have poked it, we have probed it, we have studied it, but now finally we're doing something about it, and that's a big deal.
The first serious construction gets underway in the dangerous hole at the foot of the Alabama Channel. A new load of concrete has just been delivered. If the channel were dry, it would be a simple matter to pour the steps of the whitewater exit sill. But these steps need to be poured underwater.
Yeah, burn it up.
Using a hose, a pair of divers begin squirting the concrete into grout bags in near zero visibility.
Are you at the end of that bag, Kenny?
Roger.
We are at the end of the bag,
From a trailer rigged with communications gear and a TV monitor, Dive Supervisor Russell Ward runs the operation.
All right, we're on top of the bag.
We're building up the natural bedrock to the design firm's required elevation with grout bags. The diver is basically just an anchor for that grout hose. The other diver might check the bag, make sure that it hasn't rolled, twisted, or torn.
All right, let's go ahead and survey.
Right,
As one group of divers continues to work in the Alabama Channel, another sets out to investigate the area immediately above the dam.
So what we're trying to do is send in small boats and divers and try to probe down through the 10 to 15 feet of sediment.
It seems to be the deepest right there.
And find out where the bedrock is.
To complicate matters, divers must work around something else, a forest of timbers first put in place before the Civil War.
What's behind the larger dam was a dam built in the late 1850s by William H. Young when he sort of reorganized the whole power system. The reverse side, the water side, is sloped. The weight of the water then helps to hold the dam in place.
You're swimming down the inclined face of the dam, and this is a sheathing.
The Uptown Columbus group review the images.
The water clarity is really pretty good.
It's rising.
But still, not clear enough to figure out how best to remove this pre-Civil War dam and any rocks and debris lurking beneath it.
So we don't really know what's going on beyond 10 feet.
And there's no way to find out while it's all still underwater.
You're not going to know until the dam gets breached. You're not going to know.
With the structures in the Alabama Channel complete, that moment is fast approaching. The construction crew now begins to tackle the hardest task of all, demolishing the Eagle and Phoenix Dam itself.
We put a lot of planning into how we're going to detonate the dam, and what we decided to do is to build a platform. We made it out of steel and set it up on top of the dam and set a drill rig on top of that. So then what we did with that drill rig, we drilled down through the top of the dam, all the way down to bedrock.
Only the drill crew is allowed on the platform. Drilling alone could cause this 130-year-old dam to collapse. And sure enough, they soon run into trouble.
We found out that the inside of the dam was not very solid. So as we pulled that drill back out, it kind of collapsed back on itself, like drilling through marbles, if you would.
To keep the drill holes open, the crew feed in sections of PVC pipe that will be used to load the explosive charges. By now, the blast date is fast approaching.
We were fighting the clock with getting the dam out because the environmental community was arguing with breaching the dam sooner because we didn't want to be dramatically changing the ecosystem when the fish were spawning.
In construction, you always have deadlines, and so we've been working pretty much around the clock to make sure it happened in that time frame.
Take your positions.
It's showtime on the Chattahoochee. Columbus and its Alabama neighbor, Phoenix City, are throwing a party.
So there's a dam there.
Some come simply out of idle curiosity. For others, like Neil Wickham, this is a day they've been dreaming of for years.
So y'all are handling this. Who's handling t-shirts?
As everyone knows, today is blast day.
Stand by. We're going to do another test on the signal.
I had a pretty queasy stomach. In spite of all the whiz-bang technology and all of our efforts to predict what we were going to find, there was an enormous amount of uncertainty, at least in this mine, about what was going to happen.
In less than 30 minutes, they'll know. The crowd gathers at the viewing site a quarter-mile downstream from the dam. For safety's sake, members of the public and the media won't be allowed any closer.
It involves closing a bridge between two states, redirecting traffic, blocking intersections, so nobody gets injured and this blast goes off.
What you're afraid of is not big boulders going, but you're afraid of just little small boulders that might fly away.
All stations, we're still under 5 minutes. Leave your lights on. All lights remain on until the all clear is sounded.
Today will be the first of 2 blasts, taking out a 50-foot section to relieve the back pressure on the dam. But there are some lingering concerns.
Is it going to unravel? Is it going to wash out those rocks that are inside the dam and just keep unraveling as it goes across the river?
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Fire in the hole. There it goes.
Within seconds, the waters of the Chattahoochee surge through a gaping hole in the Eagle and Phoenix Dam. 4 days later, the blast team is back. This time, they'll take out a larger, much deeper section.
Wednesday we had a 50-foot wide section. Today it's 75-foot wide. It's much deeper, so we had a lot more powder, a lot more explosives in there, probably 3 times as much explosives as we did on Wednesday, but because the size of it is so much bigger.
The setting was Hollywood. Just before the blast, a bald eagle is sailing there right over the dam. It just appeared to have been scripted.
Within minutes of the blast, a long submerged rapid appears above the dam. For the first time in nearly 2 centuries, whitewater is once again running over Coweta Falls.
I'm real excited about it. I'm hoping I can hang around long enough to actually run it.
But the job is still only half done. Before the rest of the dam can be removed, the Georgia side of the river needs extensive work. At Alden Labs in Massachusetts, Rick McLaughlin and his partner, John Anderson, are once again working on the physical model of the river.
So we're going to take the lower step off.
This time, they're here to fine-tune their star attraction, the Georgia Wave Shaper.
What we're focusing on the Georgia side is to really optimize that wave shaper so it really creates a great wave throughout the whole range of flows.
To do that, they're adjusting the angle on one of the vanes that form the wave.
On the iteration before, we saw the wave was a little green. So what we're trying to do now is make it a little more sticky, a little more white.
Structures guiding the flow toward the wave shaper also need adjusting.
At the moment, the water is flowing at an angle to the wave, and what we want to do is help that water turn the corner and go straight down the wave. And we're doing that with turning vanes, blocks of rock in the river that are essentially pointing in the direction where we want it to go. I say, water, go this way, and then we're building those right now.
With the modifications complete, it's time to turn the pumps back on. Rick uses colored dye to verify the direction of the flow.
So what we're trying to do at this particular location is to figure out how to make the flow turn so it's pretty much perpendicular to our feature. So right here we have too much velocity that's kind of heading to the left, and here it's going pretty well.
Rick must also factor fish into his whitewater equation.
So in the middle, we kind of have a middle channel there, and that's a slower gradient, so fish can kind of skirt up along the banks of that passage.
When the pumps are turned up to simulate maximum daily flow, the wave shaper performs exactly as hoped.
So that wave right there is just about perfect. It's probably about 6 feet high. It's got about the right enough amount of white on top of it. That's a world-class wave right there.
All that's left is to bring this world-class wave to the paddlers in the real world. It's midsummer in Columbus. The riverbed below what's left of Eagle and Phoenix Dam has turned into a construction site. Tons of rock and debris have been excavated, leaving behind a gaping 30-foot hole. In it, they'll build the wave shaper.
We're getting ready to pour concrete for our foundation for the wave shaper. We'll probably have about 8 concrete trucks is what we're thinking, about 72 yards of concrete for this particular pour today.
The first truckload is on its way. Before the work is done, another 400 will come rumbling in.
We'll pour concrete into the hopper of that pump truck, and it will pump the concrete down there so we can place it in place. You have the guy that operates the pump truck, and he has a remote control, and he'll put that hose wherever it needs to go. And so there's a lot of coordination between the workers in the hole and the guy that's operating the pump truck to make sure that concrete goes in the right place.
Upstream of the Eagle and Phoenix Dam, construction is underway too. Here, it's more about river restoration than whitewater rafting. They're excavating a channel that will allow fish to travel upstream, even when the river is low.
There's quite a bit more area here. I think there's a couple of other spots downstream where we could look too.
Biologist Alice Lawrence and a team from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has come to conduct a survey. They want to see what changes have occurred in the aquatic life since the first dam was blasted.
As the water has receded since the dam has been breached, people are really surprised at all the rock material. A lot of people never realized that it looked like this.
So basically, I mean, the water levels covered all of this. This was all inundated. Yes. Yeah, it seems like there's some good kind of refuge places for some of the fishes during the higher flows.
And there are some spots we'd like to look at for mussels.
Mussels are filter feeders, a good indicator for water quality. Looking for them means suiting up.
Typically with these mussel and snail surveys, we have folks who are diving and snorkeling. Basically, they are visually observing the substrate looking for mussels and snails and then hand grubbing at the same time. These are the Asian clams, corbicula, and they can be found in lots of habitats where we don't find native mussels. They do a good job of filtering the water, so they do serve a purpose.
In the years ahead, the biologists hope the native mussel species will follow, especially as the fish they depend on are already moving upstream.
The shoals attract a lot of fish species that prefer the type of shoal habitat, swift water, a lot of oxygen, a lot of aeration. I think that directly correlates with the mussel species that would be found.
If you look across the United States, hundreds of dams like this, old, non-functioning dams have been removed because people are realizing the benefits to freeing the river and providing for passage for aquatic organisms. And so I'm really excited for the folks down here in Columbus and Phoenix City.
"20 miles away, at a small engineering shop in Smith Station, Alabama, one man is already reaping the benefits of dam removal.
Underneath the bearing flanges that you made, this material right here needs to be 2-inch.
Steve Green has won the bid to fabricate the steel heart of the wave shaper.
Right off the bat, I felt very nervous. It's big and it looks scary on paper. So I told him that I needed probably a couple weeks to try to get together and get the quote up on it.
Using heavy-duty 3/4-inch steel plate and 20-inch diameter pipe, his task is to assemble the 3 30-foot blades, also known as vanes. They'll mold the waters of the Chattahoochee into the perfect wave.
When you're doing something other that you've never done before, but you've been fabricating all your life, it's fun.
Only fun doesn't mean easy.
This was the bolt here that we had a conflict with.
Rick McLaughlin stops by to make some last-minute design changes.
So what we're going to do is eliminate this bolt and then just move it over here further and just tap that.
Get it over here out of the way of that blade.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the construction crew continues to pour concrete as fast as they can. Besides the wave shaper, they have to rebuild the surrounding riverbed.
We have placed 30 feet of concreted boulders and structure. So we started at elevation 173 and we're all the way up to elevation 203. Quite a feat.
The question now, will the wave shaper vanes be ready in time?
What they're doing over there now is, if you want to walk over there, I'll show you.
Steve is eager to show off his progress.
As soon as we get that welded together and get the holes punched in and get my hardware welded onto my nuts, we could actually go install this and install that, because that's done. I just need to paint it.
On the back of a flatbed trailer, the first of the 2 movable vanes for the wave shaper arrives in Columbus. Down in the riverbed, the delicate task of maneuvering the huge 12-ton piece of steel into position begins.
Most of the time, jobs like this, you set it in, you see what's wrong, you swing it back out, you make your changes and you fix it, you swing it back and try it again. Sometimes that happens 2-3 times.
But weeks of planning pay off. The vane drops smoothly into place at the first attempt.
A big sense of relief has come off of me because we can make the first one go in. I feel pretty sure the second one's probably not going to be no problem.
A few weeks later, with the lower blade also in position, the wave shaper is finally complete. Even for its creator, it's an impressive sight.
It's really different to see it in the real world versus the model, because in the model, you know, that's about my shoe size. A half-inch piece of plexiglass versus a
30 tons of metal.
Yeah, that's it. And you think after all these years I'd be used to it, to expect it, but it's all the time. It's that way. You go, wow, that really is big.
It is a big machine. It really is. And it's the only thing that we've really spent money on that's purely recreational in this whole entire project.
Question is, will it work? A hydraulic control system embedded in the concrete walls is powered up. For the first time, the hulking 12-ton vanes move freely up and down.
We were trying to decide what it looks like. What's some kind of Wizard of Oz door or...
Of course, Dave said it was more like the gates of hell opening.
And now the gates of hell are ready to receive whitewater. Within days, a pair of track hose begin attacking the remains of the Eagle and Phoenix Dam.
Well, today is a truly momentous day because we are going to take off the top layer of the dam. We'll remove 6 to 8 feet as a first step in removing the entire dam.
Half a mile upstream, there's more drama. On a cold, blustery day, a crowd gathers on the 14th Street Bridge. City Mills, the second of the 2 old dams, is about to be demolished.
Originally, we had planned on taking it out with mechanical equipment, a track hoe with a jackhammer attached to the end of the track hoe. But as we got out there and started chipping at it, we found out this dam is a lot more substantial than Eagle and Phoenix Dam.
So now, it too will be blasted.
On this blast, we actually had water coming over the dam, which was the plan. And so the water coming over the dam was what we used to help hold down the blast material so the rocks didn't fly too far away.
After 150 years or more, this stretch of the Chattahoochee is back the way nature intended it. But the first test of the new whitewater run will have to wait till sunset, when power generation upstream sends the first pulse of water through the newly completed wave shaper. To make the first run, Rick has invited a special guest.
Hunter, it's great to have you here.
Hunter Kadich, reigning junior world champion of freestyle kayaking.
I don't think even at the stickiest setting it's going to keep anyone in there, but we want to be careful.
When the wave shaper's vanes are open, they create a steep green wave with a small white cap. The energy is dispersed, so it's easy to get out of. When the vanes are closed, the wave collapses into a foaming mass. It creates what's called a hole, where the energy is more concentrated. Kayakers call it retentive or sticky because it's harder to escape. The goal is to find the sweet spot, somewhere in the middle.
See what you think, and then if you wanted us to adjust it more sticky or so after you've been in there a while, just let us know and adjust it.
With Hunter's help, Rick aims to have the wave shaper ready for opening day of the whitewater season, now just 2 months away.
He's a very good boater. He's great to have here locally so we can test it and he can give us immediate feedback. He sees things from a much different perspective than I do. I look at kind of the recreational side, and he's really focused on the competitive side of freestyle.
With its flips and cartwheels, freestyle kayaking is the gymnastics of whitewater.
So what'd you think?
Well, it favors to the left side for sure on your tricks.
One side of the wave shaper is working well, but the other is still too big and rough.
So what we've done is adjust the vanes to different levels, and what we're finding is you move those an inch and it really changes the feature a lot. So where we're going to go from here is to try to find kind of a happy medium between the different types of recreational experiences, from the freestyler to just a river rafter. So as far as the completion of the project, we're 95% there.
What a glorious, glorious day. Thank you for being here. You're making history.
A wild dream of running whitewater through downtown Columbus and Phoenix City is about to come true, thanks to the persistence of many, but one man in particular, John Turner.
It gives me great pleasure this morning to introduce to you your eternal, your brand spanking new river.
Give me 3 strokes. 1.
2.5 miles upstream, the first flotilla of rafts is getting ready.
I think it's great. Long overdue.
We're gonna have a blast out here.
Neil Wickham, the outfitter who first dreamed of it, and Ed Kinner, the retired engineer who worked to solve many of the construction challenges, are among the first to test the waters, along with some younger folk, eager to know what the fuss is all about.
I hope it stays calm. I think I'm going to try not to follow the boat.
This is opening day for the Chattahoochee River here in Columbus. We have wonderful water, we have wonderful people, and we got great weather. I don't know how we could do any better than that.
On this day, Rick McLaughlin can finally shrug off his designer hat and put on his kayaker helmet.
The feeling of the river is much more like a big western river, like some of the rapids on the Colorado, just very big, big waves. The river, before we started this project, it was just kind of stagnant pools, not a lot of people hanging around, and now it's just wonderful to be around, and people are really enjoying the river, both looking at it and being in it, and that's just a really exciting thing to be a part of it.
For decades, the Chattahoochee has been a source of tension and strife between states, with each trying to secure a bigger share of its water. But on this day, there's something to celebrate, a sparkling new white miracle.
Every step counts in restoring a river. And so whenever you restore a section of a river, even a small section like 2.5 miles, it's a large step in overall river restoration.
There are pools and there's shallows and slack water next to swift water that was described in these assessments of what this could mean for wildlife, but we're actually seeing it now. The heron population has gone through the roof since this happened.
What this shows is that the city of Columbus recognizes that restoring a free-flowing river is a benefit, not a cost, a benefit to their community. And I think that's a great model for Georgia and for the rest of the nation.
I think that we can say that we're a cool little town now because of this river.
A river that's at long last reclaiming some of its raw power and natural beauty.